Have you ever wondered if something is living inside you, whose story began long before the emergence of written language, the building of the pyramids, or even before humanity first struck a spark to warm a dark cave? Long before we considered ourselves the masters of this planet, these creatures were already honing their mastery of survival. They watched as the climate shifted, as glaciers advanced and retreated, as entire species vanished into the abyss of time, and as humanity took its first uncertain steps from the shadows of the Paleolithic toward civilization. And most unsettling of all, they are still here. They are our invisible shadows, our silent roommates, our oldest companions. We are talking about parasites. These are not merely biological organisms. They are the chronicle of our species, written into our DNA, hidden in the depths of our intestines, within our blood, and beneath our skin. The archaeology of the invisible, when mummies speak. When archaeologists began opening the tombs of Egyptian pharaohs in the 19th and 20th centuries, bodies embalmed in gold and sacred resins, they expected to find traces of wars, elite status, and the mysteries of governance. However, the microscope revealed something far more unsettling. Inside bodies whose hearts had stopped thousands of years ago, within shriveled organs and the fossilized remains of gut contents, known as coprolites, scientists discovered something that made them recoil. There, among the layers of embalming agents, rested the eggs of parasites. They had been preserved remarkably well, as if waiting for their moment to tell a story older than any dynasty. And these were not fantastic monsters from ancient myths. These were the very same roundworms, whipworms, and tapeworms that are diagnosed in modern medical clinics today. The fact that their egg morphology has remained unchanged for 3 millennia is staggering. It means that the evolution of the parasite reached its zenith in antiquity. They no longer needed to change because their strategy, stealth, survivability, and adaptation to the human internal environment, was already perfect. Imagine the contrast. A pharaoh, considered a god on earth, a supreme ruler of a powerful state, suffered daily from the same microscopic invaders as the peasant working the silt of the Nile, and the same as a modern office worker who accidentally ate unwashed greens. This leveling is a powerful lesson in biology. Before the face of evolution, there are no elites and no outcasts. The parasite sees only a habitat, and the human is the ideal reservoir. Mechanisms of eternity, a strategy that cannot be defeated. Why are they still here? Why haven't the achievements of medicine, antibiotics, sanitation, sterile technology, wiped them off the face of the earth? The answer lies in the incredible complexity of their life cycles. Evolution has turned these creatures into masters of manipulation. Parasites are the great diplomats of the biological world. Their task is not to kill the host, for the death of the host means the death of the parasite. Their true goal is a symbiosis, hidden behind the mask of disease. Many helminths have learned to masterfully manipulate the human immune system. They suppress the response to their presence by secreting substances that calm our immunity, masking themselves as the body's own proteins and creating a protective barrier impenetrable to leukocytes. It is a subtle, almost imperceptible game where the parasite literally negotiates with the organism for the right to exist. Moreover, some are capable of influencing our brain chemistry. Studies in neuro-parasitology suggest that the presence of certain species can alter neurotransmitter levels. Could it be that our behavior, our taste preferences, or even our mood swings are not always the result of our personal traits, but the quiet whisper of an ancient tenant adjusting our actions for its own benefit? This is no longer just biology. It is an existential challenge to our concept of free will. The Stone Age, the cradle of infection. To understand how they became part of us, we must return to the Paleolithic era. The world of our ancestors was a world of total contact with nature. There were no fences, water filters, or antiseptics. Humans were part of the food chain, and that chain was permeated with the larvae and eggs of parasites. Hunters butchering the carcasses of mammoths and reindeer inevitably came into contact with the blood and viscera of animals that were themselves carriers of helminths. Drinking from stagnant water sources, consuming poorly cooked meat, and living in cramped caves where waste accumulated near sleeping areas, this was the perfect laboratory for cultivating parasites. In South America, Archaeologists have found human remains over 10,000 years old. They contain traces of the whipworm, a parasite that remains a scourge in developing nations today. This discovery provides irrefutable proof. Chronic parasitic infections have been a constant companion of humanity since the very moment our species formed. We emerged from the caves, already carrying them. They traveled with us across continents, crossed the ice bridges of Beringia, and penetrated the tropics and the deserts. It was a time when the boundaries between species were blurred. Humans lived in symbiosis with wild animals, and a parasite that initially affected a wolf or cattle made the jump to humans. This was a great evolutionary transition. The parasites that became our companions began to adapt to the human organism, choosing our specific organs as their habitat. Ticks, the immortal wanderers. If worms are our internal arrivals, then ticks are our ancient external neighbors. These creatures are living fossils. In pieces of amber holding the warmth of forests from tens of millions of years ago, entomologists find ticks almost identical to modern ixodid ticks. Their evolution has stalled because they reached a biological limit. Slender legs with hooks to cling to skin, a complex oral apparatus for piercing and injecting anticoagulants, and the ability to wait in ambush for months. This is a perfect construction. Ticks have become the primary couriers of infection. Over millions of years, they have learned to carry not only their own requirements, blood, but an arsenal of pathogens, bacteria and viruses that, in turn, parasitize both the tick and the human. It is a multi-level network of parasitism, where we are merely the final link in a chain that has existed longer than the very concept of human history. They do not just drink blood. They inject a cocktail of enzymes that suppress pain and inflammation, allowing them to feed for hours while remaining unnoticed by the host. This is the height of bioengineering, evolutionary stability, and the genetic arms race. Why do parasites continue to thrive, despite our ability to build skyscrapers and split the atom? The answer lies in the concept of the genetic arms race. We evolve, developing ever more sophisticated defense mechanisms, antibodies, hygiene habits, chemical water purification. But parasites evolve in response, changing the structure of their surface antigens, developing resistance to drugs, and finding new routes of infection. It is an endless chess match where every human move is met with a counter-move by the parasite. And it is important to understand this. The parasite does not lose by not killing us. Its victory lies in stable reproduction. If we evolve toward technological progress, they evolve toward stealth. Take the Ascaris roundworm, for example. Its life cycle includes a migration of larvae through our lungs. This looks like a gross evolutionary mistake. Why take such a complex route? But it is exactly this path that allows the parasite to test the state of the organism, adapting to changes in pressure and oxygen levels before anchoring in the intestine. It is a complex adaptive mechanism that has not changed in millions of years because it works flawlessly. The hygiene hypothesis, a paradoxical friendship. But here arises the strangest question. Is our desire to completely eradicate all parasites truly straightforward? In recent decades, doctors have faced an alarming rise in autoimmune diseases, allergies, and asthma. And here, the hygiene hypothesis comes into play. Its essence is simple. Our immune system evolved under conditions of constant training, the fight against helminths. It was busy, constantly scanning the body for invaders. When we created a sterile world, the immune system became unemployed. It began to hunt for an enemy where there is none, in pollen, in food, in the cells of our own body. We removed the parasites, and our immunity went mad. This does not mean we should invite parasites back, but it forces us to rethink the very concept of health. Perhaps the biological balance we have grown accustomed to over millions of years is much more complex than simple sterility. We are an ecosystem, not just a biological machine. And in this ecosystem, parasites long played the role of regulators, tempering immune hyperreactivity. This leads us to a shocking conclusion. We are not just our own cells. We are a conglomerate of beings. The microbiome, the virome, and the parasite fauna all form what we call a human. Without them, we would be completely different creatures, and perhaps not the healthiest ones. The geography of parasitism. Borders mean nothing. Parasites do not recognize national borders. In our globalized world, they are embarking on their greatest journey yet. Airplanes carry people from one end of the world to the other in a matter of hours, and our invisible passengers travel with us. Parasites adapted to the humid tropical climate are now successfully colonizing temperate latitudes, adapting to new conditions and new hosts. We are watching the habitats of ticks expand and tropical helminthiasis penetrate regions where they were previously unheard of. Global warming plays into the hands of these ancient invaders. They occupy new territories, following the climate shifts that make the environment suitable for the survival of their eggs and larvae. We have built a world where everything is connected to everything else, and this connectivity is a gift to parasites. They use humanity's logistical chains for their own distribution. Our food, our transport, our habits, all of this serves their purposes, ethics, and responsibility to the past. The history of parasites is the history of humanity in a mirror. Every time we ignore hygiene rules, neglect food safety, or intervene in natural ecosystems, we give our ancient companions a chance to remind us they are there. We are accustomed to thinking of ourselves as the crown of creation, the masters of this planet. But parasites remind us of our biological humility. We are just another biological species attempting to survive in a world full of danger. And those dangers do not necessarily come from outside. Sometimes they live right inside us. When you think about parasites, do not imagine them as an annoying nuisance or a badge of the past. Imagine them as ancient chroniclers. They survived the fall of the Roman Empire, they witnessed the rise and collapse of feudalism, and they watched the Industrial Revolution from the depths of our bodies. They are part of the human code. The question of whether we can ever defeat them completely remains open. Perhaps it is biologically impossible. Perhaps they are the price we pay for being part of living nature. They do not just live in us, they study us, they adapt to our drugs, and they adapt to our lifestyle changes. We are tied to them by threads of time longer than any human history. And as we continue our journey through the centuries, they will move with us, remaining the shadows that cannot be separated from the light. We are their cradle, their home, and their evolutionary experiment. The future. Is final deliverance possible? Can we ever wake up in a world free of parasites? From the perspective of modern medicine, yes, theoretically, it is possible. Through vaccines, total water purification, and genetic engineering, we could reduce their presence to a minimum. But the price might be high. We have already seen what happens when the immune system is left without work. Perhaps in the future, we will have to stop destroying parasites and instead modulate their presence, utilizing their beneficial properties and suppressing the harmful ones. This sounds like science fiction, but modern research into helminth therapy, using specifically cultivated helminths, is already yielding results in combating autoimmune diseases. The irony of fate. The very creatures that have caused us suffering for centuries might become the key to curing diseases caused by our modern, overly sterile lives. We are coming to realize that the world is not divided into good and bad. In nature, everything is interconnected, and parasites are no exception. The philosophy of survival, us and them. Each of us is an entire universe. And in that universe live billions of beings. We often imagine ourselves as I, a cohesive, singular entity. But biologically, we are a symbiotic union. Our cells, our bacteria, our parasites, we all function as a single organism. Perhaps one day we will understand that our striving for complete independence is an illusion. We were never alone. We have always been part of a great dance of life where invader and host trade roles. And in this dance, there is no end, only endless movement. When you look in the mirror, you see yourself. But if you could see what is happening at the molecular level, if you could trace the history of every cell, every particle of your body, you would see the history of humanity. A history of survival, a history of struggle, and a history of coexistence. Maybe, in the end, we are that parasitic species that changed the planet, but inside us will always live an echo of the very wilderness from which we emerged. And in that echo, inside every one of us, continues an endless, ancient, and deadly game of survival. They are not just inhabitants of our body, they are the guardians of our memory. a memory of the times when we were part of a wild, untamed world where the fittest survived. And they continue to survive, despite all our achievements, despite all our borders and rules. They are our eternal companions, our reflection in the depths of time. And, perhaps, this is the most important knowledge we can gain. We are not the top of the pyramid, but a part of it. We are not masters, but temporary carriers of the great biological life that began before us and will continue after us. And in this life, parasites occupy their own rightful place. So, the next time you think of something distant, the stars or the future of civilization, remember those who are quite close. Those who have traveled the path from cave drawings to neural networks, remaining unchanged in their drive to live. Our ancient parasites, they are part of our history, and perhaps they are part of us. For if you think about it, who is actually using whom? We are their habitat, and they are our history, and this history continues. Right now, in this second, in the depths of your organism, the ancient dance continues. A dancer whose name was written on the papyri of ancient Egypt is still making its moves within your cells. Is that not immortality? Even if it is in its strangest and most frightening form. Immortality that does not depend on our actions, our wealth, or our fame. Immortality written in our very blood. And we carry this history with us wherever we go. Into space, into the ocean depths, into the future. Our invisible shadows will always be there, reminding us of where we came from and what makes us human. This biological dialogue is not just a war, it is development. We learn from each other. We adapt. We change. And in this change lies the meaning of life. We will never be free of parasites because they are part of what it means to be a living creature on this planet. And perhaps accepting this fact is the first step toward a true understanding of our place in the world. The world will not become cleaner if we destroy all parasites. The world will simply become different, but perhaps it will become poorer, for we would lose the amazing connection that binds us to our ancestors, to wild nature, and to the very essence of evolution. We must look at parasites not as enemies to be eradicated, but as a reminder of our connection to all that lives, of our fragility, of our dependence on nature, and of the fact that even the smallest creatures can play a huge role in our lives. The history of parasites is the history of humanity, and this history will never end. As long as we exist, they will be near, and this knowledge is the key to understanding that we are part of a large, complex, and amazing system we call life.